Hello, everyone. I am Pocket Lilith, and today, welcome to Rantcraft number 2. Now, this one is going to be a little bit more political. A lot of these are going to be very political. I just exited and entered the world because I was doing some bitrate testing. This is at 20,000? 20,000? Okay, you're fine. You're safe for me for now. And the video definitely won't look as shit as the last one looked. But, I think that it's a good philosophy to generally just start doing shit and not worrying about it being perfect, because you can always perfect something later down the line. Today we have our bamboo house on the water, and I will probably just be getting more bamboo at the moment and planting more bamboo for this night. But today I want to talk to you about this kind of insidious political idea, and that is the refusal of responsibility. So frequently, you'll often hear, and you'll hear this from people all around the world on all kinds of different subjects. There will be an answer that everybody accepts is right, or is the best, or at the very least does not harm you to do. And then you will have tons of people who don't want to do that for whatever reason, making so many excuses and enabling people. And this is actually about a video I recently watched by this guy named Woke Karen, and I generally think you should watch his videos, because, even when you do have a shit take, I think leftists should generally support each other. And he's bigger than me, so he could have me executed. He could have me slain. But anyway, I was watching his video on ice, and he's normally not a cuck about anything. He's very he's pro-violence, and I appreciate that. That's honestly refreshing, because the world's built on violence. I think that if your ideology is purely anti-violence completely, it's probably not feasible in the long term. I mean, every single nation on Earth has a military for a reason, and it's not because they're all evil villains. It's because at some point, somebody's going to try to kill you if you're doing things that don't advantage them as much as they'd like to be advantaged. But on this video about ICE, he and leftists do this shit all the time. He just slipped in. Oh, and if you think that you should have if you want to be smug about people not voting and refusing to vote, well, fuck you. And that's only something someone would say if they didn't vote, or if they encouraged people not to vote. And saying that alone is pretty much just defending people who chose not to vote because they're too left for it. Now, what's the problem with this? Well, one, voting determines elections. Regardless of whatever amount of Republican influence or whatever has been in our elections, ultimately voting still works. If it didn't work, it'd be a lot clearer. There are things that can make your vote less useful, but ultimately voting is never useless. It is something that costs you at most 2-3 hours, 8 hours if you have one of those big city voting booths, and you don't get anything for it. And you don't lose anything for it. In fact, you get something for it. You get a cool sticker, and you get to be smug to dumbasses like him in this case. And what it just makes me think about is just this is something you see parodied in multiple forms. You see people saying this about veganism. They'll acknowledge that it's the eco-friendly thing, but then they won't make any strides to, at the very least, reduce their meat. They'll say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, because the billionaires' actions are much more meaningful. And, that doesn't mean it doesn't matter. That just means that your actions are less impactful. And you knew that beforehand. So if it's okay to not do things because your actions are less impactful than some people, then why not murder people? Why not kill people? Why would I inconvenience myself or not immediately fulfill all of my emotional desires? because, well, you know, billionaires are killing tons of people a day. It is a way to be that no civil society can be built upon. It is such a childish uh, comeback. Like, oh well, why would I change? Because obviously I don't control the world. Holy shit, I'm an idiot. Why would I do something that cost me nothing, and uh, I did it again, and and does something positive. At the very least, at the worst, I lose, and I can bitch some more on Twitter, right? It's just an insane way of thinking, and it doesn't help anybody. It is, you see it in people who say, oh, well, you know, even though I live in this walkable city, well, everybody else drives, so well, Taylor Swift has her plane. I hear that one a lot. Taylor Swift and her plane are like one of the most important things to people who want to avoid personal responsibility. And I think that it is so disruptive to any cause, because if you say that about that, what else will you say that about? What if you think that one person having a plane is enough to dissuade you completely from a form of action that costs you nothing? One, like, where is your, what would make you move, right? And two, it's just giving up free political power, right? Free political power that you could be enacting upon your enemies. Does it mean that you'll get all the? Does it mean you'll win? No. And in his video, he also mentioned that oh well, you know, if you took all the third party votes, Kamala, and gave them all to Kamala, well, she still wouldn't have won. And yeah, but you're not thinking about the people who didn't vote, because let's be real, there's a very clear and very prevalent group of people who think that you should not vote if you are a leftist or even a liberal. Liberals think a lot like leftists. They act a lot like leftists, even if we don't want them to. Frequently, liberals emulate left behavior, but just don't have the pieces pulled together, because a lot of left-leaning liberal culture is built on actual leftist culture. It's built on actual leftist thoughts. And so when you have people like Woke Karen defending people who have just decided to not take any personal responsibility in their lives, like, you know, that is absolutely disgusting. Like, it's one thing if you personally don't vote, but if you are defending people who gave up free political power because, oh well, actually, if you vote, you're just as bad. Oh, also, I have light minor because I like it very much. I like watching all the Plex die at once. Um, but if you don't vote, you're one person. And if you keep that to yourself, whatever. Sometimes you just have things going on. Sometimes you just can't be fucked. And I get it, but you know, shame. Unless it's like a doctor's appointment or something. But this guy, his job is probably, I'm pretty sure it's just being a content creator, or at the very least, he has way more stability than any of his viewership, right? Why would you encourage people not to vote? It doesn't do anything. It, like, if you voted all your life and it didn't work, okay, so what? At least you went that option. At least you took the personal responsibility to do the bare minimum. There are gamers sitting in cum-stained chairs who are playing like Infinity Nikki or Digimon Time Stranger right now. And they're doing infinitely more than people who are telling people with opinions who are supposedly actors of those opinions, who supposedly have values and beliefs and integrity. No, don't vote. Don't vote. And I just want to know, where do you think that gets you? Where, what do you think, how do you think that helps you? That a ton of people who could have voted and would have voted, and, you know, we don't know if it's 5% of the election, but I'd say that 5% of people I meet are probably pretty left wing, right? And I live in Mississippi. It's probably way more for someone in woke ass California, like he's in. I believe he's in California. He looks like a Californite, I guess. And you know, it's just, why? It's just so childish. It's this hill. A lot of people are so attached to the Marxist ideal that they kind of forget the material reality. They are so attached to this idea of, oh well, I've got to do what people who lived like 100 years ago said that I should do, and they didn't live in our America. They didn't like if Marx lived in our America. Do you think he'd act and advocate for the exact same policies that he did? Because I don't think he did. I don't like Lenin, but I don't think Lenin would have done the same either. I don't like. Well, I kind of like Mao. It's complicated. I like Mao as a figure. I disapprove of a lot of his policies, but I like a lot of his writings, even when I don't agree with them 100%. I think he's just an interesting guy. But anyway, I don't think Mao would say, "Oh yeah, you should throw away your vote." And you should just be a cuck and basically contribute nothing to your political reality. Because let's be real, for most Americans, voting is one of the few things that they can do. They can vote and they can not buy things. Those are the two powers they have to change much of the foundations of our society. They have families, they have jobs, they have lives. And honestly, you can't really blame them. For not enjoying politics is for people who either have nowhere else to go, as in like they don't have anything else they could be doing, or it's for people who have no other options. And most Americans are in a situation in the middle that really keeps people from acting. Like most people, they can't stop working. They can't take a day off work, but they're not miserable. They're not miserable enough to be forced into something like violent action, which is why I think that a lot of violence, like using political violence, aside from like assassinations, would not work for really any political movement. Like you hear about police killing people every day, and you know it does make people scared, um, but it doesn't really do that much beyond it. People go about their day to day, and frequently, even those people who are scared just sort of deal with it, and it doesn't give the police any more or less power. It just makes people feel worse, right? And there's a lot of things like that where in America we just don't have this taste for violence because our quality of life is so high. So violent methods don't really work in societies like ours unless you can physically stop the things that are destroying the world. Unless you're like bombing a pipeline or something, that's not going to actually move things because people just can't be moved to long-term violence in America just yet. I was I was watching this other video the other day, and this is on similar topic. Uh, it was by the guy who wrote John Dies at the End. I forget his name. Just saw him in the timeline, and he was saying, if Trump got shot, there might have been a civil war. He actually didn't say completely that there would have been a civil war, but a lot of people in the comments were saying like, "Oh yeah, there 100% would have been a civil war, and you don't want one." I agree with one of those things. You don't want one, not because you don't care enough, or because it'd be so hard. Because I think that if you're living, if you're fighting and dying for a cause, and you think that you have a pretty good chance of winning, I think that most people would actually be fine with that because even though it's scary, even though it's terrifying, there's like this great amount of purpose like just given to you in your life. You feel so important. That's why like a lot of times when people leave the military, besides the fact that military kind of force you to be dependent on them because there isn't much military stuff to be done outside the military. But like when you leave the military, a lot of people don't know what to do with themselves because when you're in that environment, even if you're fighting, even if you're scared, it is like the best time of your life. I don't think people would have a distaste for it because I think it's some wretched experience. I think people get used to violence and war pretty quickly. I mean, they do get miserable and worn out by it after a while, but ultimately, I think that the reason people don't want it is because they don't have the passion for it. The material conditions are not correct for people to feel violent, for people to feel the way that they say they do online. Like you see all these anti-woke nut jobs on the internet, and they don't. What do they do? What do they do? They bitch and they whine and they moan. But how many of them would actually fight fight about it? Like they might debate about it, and if they were in a face-to-face confrontation, maybe they'd fight about it. But these people wouldn't join a war because all they do is sit on a couch and play video games. Would you want to give up a life of sitting on a couch of playing video games? I know that I and I'm a pretty, like, gung ho. Like, my political beliefs are the biggest thing in my heart. They take up like 90% of my mind. I always think about politics. I always think about doing communism. I'm like, oh, wake up! I've got to do some communism. And like, even I would have a hard time getting myself to fight a war. And if I, like Mrs. Politics, Mrs. walks up to people and just can't stop talking about what this lawmaker said, or this treatise that I read, or one of Mao's writings, it, even if I can't think of a world, like, or at least if I can't make myself do those things, right? If I couldn't make myself do those things, what do you think your average American's gonna do? Who's living a better life than me? Who has more money? Who's not living in fucking Bumho, Mississippi? Well, you know, obviously they're not going to do much more than vote, because it takes your life being shit to motivate you to do certain things. And we can actually use that to our advantage. For one, we can use that to our advantage because that allows us to leverage systems like voting. Things like not spending money towards companies that support Israel, like not like it's we're in the battlefield where peaceful means do work, and not necessarily peaceful, but like where merely disruptive, non-murderous means work, and those are the only things that really work. um and so, when most people live such comfortable lives, are so trapped, have so many obligations, like, how many jobs do you think you could stop to go to a soup kitchen in, or routinely volunteer, routinely give up 3 hours of your time? Um, I know that I couldn't. I used to be, I used to work a job that everybody said was easy, and people would walk up to me and be like, "Wow, this must be an amazing job," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, it was. I got paid pretty decently, and I was very happy doing it. I was outside all the time." But even after that, I, if you expected me to come home and and then go to somewhere else, drive to somewhere else, I can't drive, but drive to somewhere else, and fucking do 6 hours of volunteer work, that's not happening. And especially not in this economy. Like, you have to be afforded a certain amount of benefit to do certain forms of mutual aid. You have to be very privileged. Like, do you know what Che Guevara did? Why he was where he was, and why he had the ability to sort of give things up? It's because he was pretty well off. It just takes a level of well-offness to both form left-wing beliefs, I think, because they're very rational beliefs. And to form primarily rational beliefs, it's typically best if you are yourself in a position where you feel safe, where you can make rational decisions. But the Che Guevara metaphor wasn't as good as I thought it was. I was thinking about that for another one. I had that one saved in the bank. Che Guevara's going back in the bank. Don't worry about it. But I guess my point is, if every time someone tells you you should vote or you should go vegan, and these are things where you're actively just not doing something else that you are doing, where you can help it, should you at least try? Like, what does it cost you to not eat meat? We know meat is terrible for the environment, right? Like, it costs you nothing. You in fact save money. Being vegan is cheaper. And I'm not vegan right now, but I'm very slowly working towards it. I'm removing meat from my diet little by little. And I think that you should do the same. I think that you should, if you want to call yourself leftist and you aren't voting or doing things that cost you nothing, I don't think you're a leftist. I think that you don't have any ethics or beliefs because you're acting like it. Because people with beliefs do things because of their beliefs. They don't just sit on their phones all day and doom scroll. Like, there this is I think that this kind of argument, this kind of idea is purely an avoidance of responsibility. It's purely immature behavior. And I think that it's sad that a lot of people are just so out of touch with reality, are just so, I don't know, I want to say demented. Not to say that woke Karen is like some insano, but like what can you just tell me what you get out of not voting, or what other people would get out of not voting? And I know that I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, pretty sure this guy did actually encourage people to vote at a certain point. But the fact that you're emotionally like the fact that you're providing like an emotional defense, a block for people who aren't doing the bare minimum, because that is the bare minimum. I'm like, oh, well, some people can't vote. If you can't vote, I'm not talking about you. Just like how when people say, a fascist worked out today, did you? Well, they're obviously not talking about people who live in a wheelchair. Like, get real. But I'm just so sick of the avoidance of, you know, you have you have a wonderful life, and don't you don't you feel at least obligated to give something back? Like, yeah, your world's not perfect. Tons of people are ableist, tons of people are racist or sexist, but that's okay, isn't it? Like, not everything has to be perfect. We can just work towards things being better. I don't see why we have to say everything's not perfect, so why should I help anyone? Or I don't see why we should be like, oh well, my life sucks, so I'm obviously not going to do anything to help society. I think that this is first and foremost a very, I don't like this word, but I feel like this is a very Western idea. A lot of people say that, like, oh, Japan and like whatnot, they're all collectivist, and I don't think that's exactly the word for it. I think it is perhaps maybe something more insidious. They're more afraid of each other, of the systems that they've created, because a lot of the things they've created make you feel anxious if you aren't doing the best thing for everybody, because every single rule in the world was made to benefit somebody far richer than you. But I just think that maybe you should be a little bit more like that. Maybe you should think, what am I gonna do for my community today? And you might not have community. If you live in a suburb like me, you might not have people that you know in your neighborhood. And okay, so what am I going to do for the people who have to live in the same shit world as me then? What am I gonna do for the people who maybe can't vote, who maybe are too disabled and can't stay in line, or aren't gerrymandered to shit. Maybe you are gerrymandered to shit, but maybe you should show up and vote anyway, because that will show the people in your area that you're there, and it'll show people who think like you that yeah, I can and I should do that. And maybe one day you go to the voting booth. Maybe one day you opt for tofu instead of beef, and maybe somebody else sees that. Or maybe you tell somebody. Somebody asks, "Why do you have this in your fridge?" Or where were you? Did you go? Were you voting? And you're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "I would vote, but I don't think voting is good." And you could be there, and you could change one person's mind. And maybe that one person will tell their kids, tell their wife, and when they go voting, and everything you do is part of this cycle. And so when you do the right thing once, uh, it it does cascade. Even if it doesn't look like it, it does cascade. And I think that not voting because you think it won't work, or because, oh well, it doesn't matter. It's the precedent of doing what's right, of showing up to your local election, of showing up to the local community event that maybe you just had time for and you weren't doing anything else, and you'd like some food. Um, Maybe you should just think more about the people around you. Um, and this goes with a lot of things. I think that there's a lot more things you can do other than just like voting. but I think that voting is a good start to getting in the mindset of doing things for other people. I think another good one, and this might also be a bit controversial, but I think that another good one would be going to your city hall, would be going and talking to people and actually like inflicting your beliefs upon other people. Like, I can't go to city hall. Not because of anything really, but because uh, in my neighborhood, it is held, in a closed door behind with a wall that says "Beware of Jaguars," right? Um, if you if you have a community where you can go to City Hall, maybe go there. Maybe voice your opinions. Maybe you'll get something out of it. Like a lot of people think, well, I don't know why to do that. A lot of people think, well, why would I go to my City Hall? Why would I go to X or Y, or go to X, Y community event? Because it'll help people. Duh. Because it'll help you. Because like even if you can't think of it through the Stephen universe, you should help your community. Maybe you should think of it in the I'm wasting power. I'm giving away a free vote. Like, what is wrong with like in what fucking part of the animal kingdom would animals just say, no, I'm not gonna get some free meat. I'm not gonna get some free food. None. Unless they could give it to somebody else, in which you know some animals would be giving it to other animals. But you know what I mean. In what world is that the move that you should do? You should do every single thing that you can, that even if it's a gamble, because a lot of things, pretty much everything in this world is a gamble, especially when you're doing like activism or social stuff. But I think that you should, for your own sake, use all of the power you have, get all the power you have, and make sure that you're not wasting it because it's free power. You get to make the other people, at the very least, have to think about what you voted for. When they're tallying up the votes, you know what they're gonna see? They're going to see, oh, one person voted for a Mickey, Mickey Mouse. I think that's a bit of a waste of a vote. But when this person voted for this left-wing individual, okay, and then other people in your community are like, oh, people are doing that, and then maybe somebody else says, you know what, I'm gonna go vote for Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is the left-wing candidate in this fucked up, crazy world. Okay, um, yeah, I'm gonna go vote for Mickey Mouse. And, like, I know that if I saw in my district that nobody's voting, I'd certainly be discouraged if nobody's voting for my candidate, right? But that is why you vote. That's why you do things. And I hate this YouTuber is defending people, is making people feel validated because he's annoyed with whiners or whatnot. Like, this is so minor. And the fact that he brought it up kind of showcases to me that he does think I think that he thinks that, or at least he wants to not vote, even if he's been maybe bullied by more rational people into voting. I think that he, not even that deep down, just hates the idea of that kind of thing. You don't just put that in your video like willy-nilly, right? Like, I would never, if I included a section about how much I hate cars, it's not because I don't hate cars. It's because I fucking hate cars. And I do, for a lot of reasons. They're the least efficient method of transport. But anyway, I think I'm gonna get back to the house, and we'll have us a little bit of a sayonara. I really need to make this a little better, so I don't have to manually jump. I forgot you can just hold space. And sorry about the audio quality and the keyboard clacks. Pretty soon, I'm going to see if I can get a better mic or something, and maybe increase that. I'm using a dynamic mic. Dynamic mics aren't. I'm not using dynamic mic. I'm using condenser mic. I should be using a dynamic mic. A condenser mic picks up pretty much everything in your environment, and a dynamic mic picks up pretty much just voices, although it can pick up keyboard clacks, and this is the loudest keyboard. I don't know what I'm going to do about it, and I don't know how tubers Fucking, how do they get this shit not to be the worst? But anyway, this has been episode 2 of Rantcraft. It was supposed to be yesterday, but it's not like anybody's really watching, so I'm not really that accountable to anyone just yet. I don't really have a fan base or a fandom. But thank you for watching so much if you did. Fuck cars, fuck Israel, and goodbye.